Ja, meine Damen und Herren, wir haben einen kleinen Einblick eben bekommen in die schreckliche Situation der Menschen innerhalb Syriens. Und ich glaube, jeder ist immer wieder getroffen, wenn man sieht, Anarchie, Chaos, Not, Tod, zerstörte Infrastruktur. Aber wir müssen natürlich nach vorne gucken und die eklatanten Verstöße gegen das humanitäre Völkerrecht auch so benennen. Und deshalb ist es so wichtig, dass in dieser schrecklichen Situation wenigstens Zugang zu humanitärer Hilfe möglich ist. Und wir werden ja gleich von berufenen Personen, von Dr. Sama Bassas, vom Syria Relief Network und von Peter Maurer, dem Präsidenten des Internationalen Komitees des Roten Kreuzes, etwas aus der praktischen Arbeit hören. Der Einsatz der Helfer, die dort vor Ort in Syrien immer wieder versuchen zu helfen, kann gar nicht hoch genug bewertet werden. Wir wissen, dass viele ihr Leben verloren haben und dass sie sozusagen mit vollem Einsatz dort tätig sind. Es wird natürlich je länger der Konflikt andauert, desto schwieriger wird es auch für die Menschen in Syrien, an eine Zukunft zu glauben. Und umso wichtiger ist es, dass wir uns um diese Zukunft auch heute schon in Ansätzen kümmern, einmal durch Stabilisierung und durch Inseln, in denen man vielleicht auch schon zeigen kann, wie es vorangehen kann. Es geht um sehr klassische Dinge wie Infrastruktur, Wasserversorgung, Strom, Ausrüstung zur Verarbeitung von Nahrungsmitteln. Und Deutschland hat dabei mitgewirkt, den sogenannten Syria Recovery Trust Fund zu installieren, der Material und Know-how zur Verfügung stellt im Norden und Süden Syriens, in Gebieten, die von der moderaten Opposition auch kontrolliert werden. Das heißt, Stabilisierung in der jetzigen Situation kann aber nur partiell geschehen und wir brauchen die politische Lösung. Darüber ist heute Morgen schon gesprochen worden, auch wenn wir in den letzten Stunden wieder gelernt haben, wie schwierig das ist, aber daran werden wir natürlich weiter arbeiten. Ganz wichtig ist jetzt, glaube ich, dass das Signal, das von dieser Konferenz heute ausgeht, ein Signal an alle Syrer ist, nicht nur an diejenigen, die in Jordanien, im Libanon, in der Türkei sind, sondern genauso an die Menschen, die eben noch im Lande verweilen, dass wir alles, aber auch alles tun, um ihnen zu helfen. Und dem dient diese Sitzung hier, gleichzeitig verbunden mit Vorstellungen auch, was können wir tun, wenn wir wieder mehr Zugang haben, wie können wir die Stabilisierung und den Wiederaufbau dann voranbringen. Also eine sozusagen Sitzung, die sich auf der einen Seite mit dem jetzigen Zustand und dem Zugang zu Hilfe befasst, genauso wie mit der Zukunft und der Stabilisierung. Und ich freue mich, dass ich neben den beiden genannten Personen den UN-Generalsekretär auch hier auf dem Podium habe und natürlich unseren Gastgeber David Cameron. Beide werden dann auch hierzu beitragen. Aber jetzt erst einmal freue ich mich, dass ich Dr. Sama Bassas, eine Ärztin, die von der Türkei aus humanitäre Hilfe nach Syrien organisiert, dass ich Ihnen das Wort geben darf.
Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank everybody who supported the people of Syrians through the last 5 years, especially all humanitarian organizations and UN agencies who continue to push for the impossible. Appreciation for our heroes, the humanitarian workers inside Syria, who is risking their lives every day, providing services, relief, and hope, and prayers to whom lost their lives on duty. I'm honored to represent the Syrian voice, but it's also a burden that I carry. The deterioration of humanitarian situation in Syria is overwhelming. There are so many needs to highlight. Should I talk about the suffering of more than 400,000 Syrians in besieged areas where hunger is used as a weapon? Or about the 6.5 million displaced more than once, seeking a safe place that they cannot find anymore? Should I highlight the hospitals that are being attacked by airstrikes at least once every 3 days? and the 650 health providers that lost their lives serving others? How can I reflect our frustration as health professionals seeing hospitals going out of services and health workers fleeing because the situation in Syria has became unbearable? Should I mention that more than 4,000 schools have been attacked since the crisis started, and more than 2 million children are out of school? Our children forced to grow up to support their families because they lost one or both parents in attacks on residential areas. Our girls and women forced into marriages and human trafficking. Our entire generation, children, youth, older people, and women were affected in this complex war. Hope has been diminishing, and few choices left for the Syrians. Syrian people are a nation of pride. We work hard to own our homes. We study hard to earn our education. Our men are successful businessmen. Our women are community leaders. Our professionals are known globally for their achievement, and our children are ambitious, and our elderly are respected. Syria is the center of all civilization. Aleppo is the oldest city in history. Damascus is the oldest capital on earth. And sadly, what we lost in this war was not only our homes, not only our jobs, not only our schools, not only our beloved, but we are losing our dignity as a proud nation. I'm here to ask you all to do your part to end this war and restore the dignity of the Syrian people, the dignity of center of all civilization. We as humanitarian actors will not abandon the people of Syria and will keep our commitment to respond to the suffering wherever it's found. We will preserve as much dignity as we can by providing aid, running hospitals on the ground, and surgeries on generators, protecting civilians from harm. We will not give up and will count on you to support. However, it will remain very fragile as long as the conflict continues and families are the ones on the front line paying the price of inaction. We need a collective pressure on all parties to the conflict to allow humanitarian to work safely and reach people in need, and for civilians to move to safety and seek the services they need. Ultimately, we need political action to end the conflict. We demand the humanity of all of you to use all of your powers and influence to end the suffering of my people. Enough is enough. Let me go home tonight and give hope to the Syrians that there will be a Syria to go home to one day soon.
Ja, wir danken ganz herzlich Samba Bassas und wünschen ihr und allen, die bei der Arbeit mittun, viel, viel Erfolg und weiter viel Kraft für diese schwierige Arbeit. Und ich möchte jetzt Peter Maurer ganz herzlich willkommen heißen, den Chef des Internationalen Roten Kreuzes, und wir freuen uns auf Ihren Beitrag.
Herzlichen Dank. When my colleagues arrived in Madaya 3 weeks ago, Fatma, a little girl maybe 6 years old, woke up to them and said, "We have been waiting for you. Did you bring any food?" Anyone who has been to Syria knows the people's extraordinary hospitality and great pride. For a 6-year-old girl to walk up to a stranger to ask for food, this shows in a nutshell what the crisis has done to the spirit of the people of Syria. So how did we get there? The answer is alarmingly simple. Constant violations of international humanitarian law, use of illegal weapons and the illegal use of weapons, an epidemic of sieges, urban warfare, destroying electricity and water infrastructure, deliberate attacks on schools and hospitals have accumulated into full system failure, forcing more than half of the Syrian population from their homes. Over 4.5 million Syrians have fled abroad, the vast majority to countries neighboring Syria. But twice as many are displaced inside Syria until the next attack forces them to flee again. These people need help, they need protection, they need you to work for their safety urgently. Let me be clear. Attacks on civilians are not collateral damage. Bombing civilians is standard practice of warfare in Syria today, but that does not make it acceptable. While the front lines have moved hardly over the last years, the civilian population's suffering has surged. The letter and the spirit of international humanitarian law that all parties to conflict care and are obliged to respect and to ensure respect for the law and aims to protect people from direct and indiscriminate attacks and to preserve their dignity in war. It does not outlaw warfare, but it outlaws the deliberate creation of humanitarian catastrophes. Last year, the ICRC and the Syrian Arab Red Crescent aided over 16 million people inside Syria, but we can't reach everyone. Humanitarian aid is always a quick fix and never enough. Therefore, as long as this goes on, people will lack food, so they will get weak. They will have no fuel for heating, so they will get sick. They have no medicine, so they get sicker. And they have no hospitals, so eventually they die. The indirect consequences of warfare add to the direct impact. So how do we get out of here? Lift all sieges immediately. Start putting Syrians first and your own interest second. Find a political solution urgently. In the meantime, ensure that international humanitarian law is respected by you and your partners, whoever they are. And give us access so we can bring food and medicine to Fatma and all the other children and women and men in Syria. We got to today's catastrophe also because of the lack of political action and ambition to resolve the crisis and because humanitarian aid is becoming a bargaining chip in political negotiations. We need you to show more political ambition to open impartial humanitarian spaces and less political meddling in humanitarian work. The Red Cross and Red Crescent movement is by far the most important frontline humanitarian actor in Syria today. Movement partners also need your support to help more Syrians in the region and beyond. In 5 years only, more than 60 of our colleagues died while they tried to save people, 3 of them as recently as yesterday in the Aleppo region. Our principles have not changed: neutrality, impartiality, independence. We cannot abandon the Syrian people. We are ready to do more, but we need your support. I thank you.
Ja, herzlichen Dank, Herr Maurer, und herzliche Grüße von uns, von dieser Konferenz an all diejenigen, die für das internationale Rote Kreuz arbeiten und täglich ihr Leben aufs Spiel setzen, um anderen Menschen zu helfen. Wir freuen uns jetzt auf den Beitrag des UN-Generalsekretärs Ban Ki-moon, der uns sowohl noch einmal einen Eindruck geben wird über das Leiden der Bevölkerung, aber auch über die Hoffnungen auf Stabilisierung und Zukunft.
Thank you, Prime Minister Angela Merkel and Prime Minister David Cameron, distinguished leaders, and ladies and gentlemen. The situation inside Syria is as close to hell as we are likely to find on this earth. You have just watched the video, very brief, so I may not be able to describe what the situation will be like inside Syria. And therefore, I'll try to be very brief. I visited all the camps, but I have personally not been able to visit Syria during this crisis time, but I have visited several times before the crisis. So I can easily imagine then what kind of situation would be there. It must be terrible. As I said, it is as close to hell, as close to hell. So I cannot, it's really heartbreaking. Helicopters you have seen drop barrel bombs on homes and schools. Families move desperately from one town to another in search of safety. But I know that people are resilient. As we have seen, just a two-week-old baby Nearly 1 child in 3 is out of school. In some areas, women and girls are enslaved. In others, children, the sick, and the elderly are at risk of malnutrition and starvation. Untold numbers of people have died in secret prisons and detention centers. We need to have a due approach that will end these horrors and bring systems hope of a better future. The negotiation is very difficult, and even, I think, operations may be very difficult. But it is, again, the United Nations, who should be a very impartial organization. ICRC and Red Crescent, they are impartial and neutral organizations, but they are not able to have an access. That's a real problem because of all these checkposts and all different political reasons. Syrians need basic services. Farmers, who are mostly women, need tools and seeds so they can feed their families and generate incomes. If we are to stop the most able and qualified Syrians from leaving their country, they need confidence that they can do more than just survive. We must build on initiatives such as UNICEF's No Lost Generation campaign and my Special Envoy Gordon Brown's proposal to get 1 million Syrian children into school in Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey. These steps will require substantial financial commitment, new partnerships, and innovative thinking. The members of the International Syria Support Group have a special responsibility to push for results. Without progress on the ground, the chaos in Syria will only deepen. And I thank you for your very generous support and compassionate leadership. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ja, herzlichen Dank und ich möchte jetzt einer Frau das Wort geben, die für die Europäische Union unerlässlich unterwegs ist, um an der Lösung von Konflikten mitzuarbeiten, nämlich der Hohen Vertreterin Federica Mogherini.
Thank you, and I would like to thank all those humanitarian workers that are doing the difference, making the difference, trying to make the difference every single day. And I believe that if we are here today, it's because we feel we share a responsibility, and I would say a duty. The duty and the responsibility to focus today and tomorrow, when the conference will be over, on the people of Syria. We see the numbers, we talk of geopolitics, but we often forget the names, the faces of the persons whose lives are at stake. And let me say that sometimes we Europeans do that. If we focus on them, each and every one of them, then maybe it will be a little bit easier, it will help us a little bit to make the right things, to take the right decisions. And we all have difficult decisions to take in order to be consistent and honor our responsibilities on both tracks we have in front of us. The humanitarian one, and I'll come to that, and the fragile, difficult, very difficult, but still finally existent political process, built with patience and courage in Vienna, in New York, in Geneva, next week in Munich. Let me also say very clearly here, as I see him sitting here, that mentioning the name of Staffan de Mistura or thanking him is not enough. We need to empower him and create the conditions for his work to succeed. This is our responsibility. And let me also say very clearly that those who still believe that there can be a military solution to this war should wake up, should simply wake up. The only way to save Syria and to save Syrians is to implement the roadmap set by all of us in the International Support Group and endorsed for the first time ever after 5 years of war by a Security Council resolution unanimously adopted in December. Implemented in all its parts. A ceasefire in place as talks will restart. Immediate implementation of confidence-building measures, starting with full access for humanitarian aid to all areas in need. The ones we see, like Madaya, and all the others, the names of which our public opinion ignore. We need to protect the political process, make it inclusive, make it deliver, and make sure it is accompanied by substantial steps on the ground to rebuild trust not only among the parties, but first and foremost among the Syrians. The EU, as the major donor for Syria, the major donor for Syria, and as a major political and diplomatic player in the region, feels this sense of urgency. And let me say, we expect this sense of urgency is shared by all in the region and the international community. Today, the European Union pledges 2.4 billion euros of EU budget alone for 2016 and 17. This is more than twice our pledge at last conference in Kuwait, and this is only from EU budget. On top of that come the national contributions. But let me say that money alone will not make it. You know that better than me. If you have the money, you have the humanitarian aid, you don't have access, and you don't have a political horizon, we will meet here again next year with more money and no solution. We do this anyway. We do this to support Syrians inside Syria. We do this to support Syrians hosted in the neighboring countries, in Jordan, in Lebanon, in Turkey. The EU-Turkey Joint Action Plan and the refugee facility have just been activated. We are working closely with Lebanon and Jordan on what we call the European Union Compacts, which are plans that won't just ease the living conditions of the refugees, they will also support the economic and social resilience of Lebanon and Jordan in these very difficult times. Let me mention in particular the fact that we're working with Jordan on an initiative on rules of origin to promote new employment and economic opportunities and encourage additional investment to the benefit of both Jordanians and the refugees. And let me also announce here that this initiative could be implemented if the Council agrees over a 10-year period with a midterm revision. And let me also stress here, especially here in London, that this is exactly a specific added value of the European Union compared to single measures that member states can take. Jordan and Lebanon are still rocks in the Middle Eastern storm, and investing in their resilience and in their sustainability, in the sustainability of their policies, is also an investment in our own security, in our own future. The future of Syria, the future of those children, women and men we've seen in the video, will not be written somewhere else, and it is our responsibility to allow them to live it. It is our collective responsibility to make today a day of hope, as the Chancellor mentioned this morning, and to turn hope into reality, to bring peace in Syria and rebuild the country. The European Union is ready. Thank you.
Ja. Herzlichen Dank an Federica Mogherini und ich übergebe das Wort an David Cameron.
Well, let me add my thanks to Federica for that speech and for that very generous and important pledge, not just for this year but into the future. The aim of this session is to hear about the atrocities taking place within Syria and then to hear about the action and the very valuable pledges that colleagues are going to make. So I don't want to stand in the way of those pledges. I just wanted to make a point, a thank you, and a call to action. The point is that what we saw on that video and what we've heard about are violations of international humanitarian law, and the perpetrators have ignored United Nations resolution after United Nations resolution. And there is a duty on all of us, in particular those with any sort of relationship with the Syrian regime, to put pressure on the responsible parties right now. The thank you is to the incredible bravery of all those working to provide aid inside Syria. We saw it in the film, but there are so many aid agencies and so many who are still working inside Syria to help people, and we should thank them. The call to action is simply this, that as well as the funds that we need to raise for the UN programs that is so vital today, we also need to be planning for the reconstruction of Syria once peace comes. Of course, we hope that comes soon, but whenever it comes, the planning that we do now, the roadmap that we build now, with the help of the UN Secretary General, can make sure the international community is ready to help Syria when peace and when transition comes. With that, I'd like to invite onto the stage Minister Muller from Germany and Minister Swain from Great Britain, who are going to take over the chairmanship of the next part of this meeting, where we're going to hear some very important pledges and contributions from colleagues here, for which thank you very much. But the session has got off to a good start. Thank you, Angela.